Welcome to A Court of Fairies and Fangirls. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is a Sarah J. Maas fan podcast where we are obsessed with her books and can't stop thinking about it or talking about it. So we figured, why not record us thinking and talking about it? So
we're going to break down chapters, go through each book separately, go into character analysis and any thoughts or kind of theories that we have about books, characters, plots, etc.
And maybe play some fun games along the way.
Exactly.
So welcome and enjoy. Listeners, can you tell that we sound clearer?
We're official. We have microphones now.
We have microphones.
No big deal or anything.
I know. It's like this is the moment I've been waiting for to feel like we've hit a legit phase. And I think it was fair of us to wait until we did this consistently for a minute before we committed.
Yeah, I think the
energy
fact that
to getting microphones working.
The fact that we've consistently met 6 weeks in a row.
Yep.
We're official.
We are.
Yeah.
It is our present.
We're at least going to make it through one book successfully. I feel like meeting consecutively 10 weeks in a row. That's my thought.
I'm proud of us for that.
I am too.
I think I started mapping out doing Mist and Fury after this and figuring out what our timelines are. And I had us, after finishing this, because this is episode 6, this season is going to be 10 episodes. So I kind of was factoring in, let's take maybe a week off, take a break between seasons, maybe 2 weeks, I don't know. And then move into Mist and Fury. And with the timing of that, Mist and Fury will be done end-ish of January, which doesn't feel like it's that far away, but we would be able to get in all of those episodes.
It's pretty impressive.
Wouldn't that be cool to have the first 2 books done for the most part by the end of this year?
I like it.
I feel like we would have I like to do my goals at the beginning of every year. I did not start a podcast on this year's goals. So that's going to be a fun end of year. I didn't think this was going to happen, but look at what we accomplished this year.
That sounds very exciting.
I'm very proud of us.
I am too.
All of this stems from our gift to ourselves, which is the microphones.
Yay!
Okay, so this week we're going to talk about chapters 23 through 27, which we are calling Danger Abounds. Ooh. Lots of exciting things happening this chapter. So I'll start us off with a summary. So chapter 23 summary. I put, Tamlin and Feyre enjoy an afternoon in the Glen. Tamlin helps Feyre to see the true beauty of the spring court. Their connection and comfort with each other grows. A very short chapter.
Yes.
But really sweet.
I know. I think the beginnings of this section that we read are all, it's just this very lovey-dovey, very sweet, very romantic. And it starts with Tamlin making Feyre an offer of allowing her to truly experience Prythian, which I think would be probably the coolest thing ever up to this point that she's been able to do.
Yeah.
In exchange for a kiss.
Which is very elementary school.
It is. But she agrees to it.
Yes. Look at you, Feyre.
I know.
It's because she wants it.
Oh, she wants that kiss.
You want to act like you don't want it, which is the elementary school part. But you want it.
And he even kisses her, so to, allow her to see, he kisses each eyelid. And then she sees, which I can't even imagine how beautiful it is, because I remember when she first came to the spring court, she talks about how she couldn't even paint the the spring court because it was so beautiful. It wouldn't do it justice. So it's that was her initial thoughts on it. So now to see it as the fairies see it,
how much more beautiful.
Right. It's
exponential.
I know. And I think of the TV show and I'm are you going to have it really dim and dull? When we first get in there, pretty, but nothing.
An Instagram filter on it that does it.
Basically. And so then it's when she gets these kisses on her eyelids and she can see Tamlin for who he is and what the spring court. I was is it going to be filtered and look amazing? I was and then is it going to be that for the rest of the time?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I picture everything having a little bit of sparkle or a little halo almost around it. Just everything is low level glowing.
But then is it going to do that for the rest of the series? Because then
it would have to.
I'm I don't want it to look tacky though. So.
But we also don't know how long her vision of this the true beauty of Prythian is. So maybe it won't. But that's the hope, right? Is like it wouldn't disappear. Yeah. I don't know. But I'm just like very jealous of her and I'm really excited. But something I noticed is the smell of magic changed once he did that also. It says, there was no tangy metallic stench. No, the smell of magic had become like jasmine, like lilac, like roses. And I was like, that sounds lovely.
That sounds much better than a metallic smell too. But it's interesting that it's like everything, like all the senses change. It's not just like her vision. It's like, you know, her sense of smell, probably taste, I would assume.
Yeah. That's another thing to point out. But. And then she also finally sees an unglamoured Tamlin. Still masked, but unglamoured.
Devastatingly handsome, captivating, powerful beyond belief. This was the Tamlin I had imagined in my dreams.
Just like, wow.
Woo.
Okay.
I'm sure he is beautiful.
I know. I love this idea of like, she thought he was handsome before. Like, remember when they were in the pool of starlight?
Oh yeah, I remember.
It's like, how much more handsome is he in this way? I'm also just like, if you were that handsome, why are you glamoring yourself?
Yeah, true. But he does talk about, so kind of in regards to that, he says that being a High Lord as someone that powerful, it comes with physical markers, which is why he couldn't hide it from his brothers.
That's right.
So that makes me question, like, are the physical markers, like, hidden behind the mask? Or are they, like, you know, like, is like an aura around him? Like, what are these markers that make it so obvious? Because he doesn't really specify. Farrah doesn't really ask, which I feel like for her being such an inquisitive person, I'm surprised she didn't ask because I want to know. So, yeah.
Also, they have a really sweet moment just, like, about the mask and how he's, like... He says, like, I'm sorry to disappoint you, just in terms of, like, it not being able to come off.
Right.
And he asks her, like, what do you think I look like? And part of me is, like, you're not that hidden by a mask. I don't know. Like, I'm just, like... It's a thing, like, at, like with a Cinderella story, right? I think we mentioned that before, too. Yes. But it's, like, you put on this mask, you can still tell who the person is. And, like, generally what they look like.
Right. But I'm picturing this mask as, like, one of those, like, really long ones that almost, like, so it goes right over your lip. So, like, it covers your nose, goes right over your lip, and then almost, like, swoops down, like, Phantom of the Opera style. But, like, on both sides. So, like, I'm picturing literally, like, just the mouth. You're picturing
literally, like, Phantom of the Opera style.
Yeah, but both sides, like, completely covered.
Right, not the broken
mask.
Right,
yeah. Not the broken mask.
But, that's different. Pictured. Because I was picturing, like, Masquerade, like,
where it's that little,
it's like just over your eyes and like it goes over your nose, but it's not like covering your whole nose.
Because if that's the case, I'm like, get over yourself. Like, you know what he looks like. Let's be real. But
no, your way makes more sense.
And mine's like this like thick like golden metal where it's like you can't even like see the color of his skin underneath.
Right. Okay. You know, that makes more sense to the situation. I like didn't even think of that as an option. My brain just went straight to like basic Masquerade type masks.
Well, I feel like it's generally the masks that you see. So
fair enough.
Yeah. But then Farrah holds up her end of the bargain.
Oh my gosh.
And she kisses him, which is the most ridiculous thing ever. Like, she literally grabs his hand and kisses his hand. I was like, really, Farrah? Like, you wanted to kiss him. That's my thing. I'm like, she wanted him to kiss her. I think she got
nervous by, like, the feels. Because she's like, she did a lot of blushing in that. And I think she was a little overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And then she just got embarrassed. And that's why she's like, meh, there you go. You got your kiss.
But Tamlin finds it hilarious. He's just cracking up.
Of course he does. I'm so enjoying them finding joy in each other.
I know.
Right. You're finally starting to see them for like who they are, you know, and you're starting to like see that they're getting comfortable with each other enough to just like be sarcastic and do like the, you know, fake like meh kiss. Like they're laughing. It just brings me joy.
I know.
Which, and speaking of bringing me joy, the last line of this chapter, as she's like, okay, because the tree, because the whole thing came about because he was saying how the tree was like singing and how it always puts him to sleep. That's how this all happened. And then the willow tree was starting to put her to sleep.
Right.
And as that's happening, he goes, "You're exactly as I dreamed you'd be too."
Aww.
And that's just such a sweet line.
It really is. But it's like, I know you and I had talked about this earlier, and it was like, dreamed she would be what? Like,
right, exactly.
Like his wife, his lover, his human friend. Like, what was he dreaming?
Yeah, part of me is like, she's a human woman. Mm-hmm. What were you dreaming about?
Right. Like, I would expect him to be dreaming of a high fae if he was looking for a lover or like a woman.
Because he says, you're exactly as I dreamed you'd be too.
Yeah.
It's not like you're what I hoped for or I've always wanted someone like you. It's you're exactly as I dreamed you'd be too. Mm-hmm. So it's a little intriguing there.
It is.
Mostly just because I'm suspicious. Because I'm a 6 and that's how I live my life. But I was like, it's super sweet. I put the little heart feelsy sticker next to it, but I'm also like, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which was, that kind of behavior was really great in like the early phases of my relationships when people would be like, oh, you're so wonderful. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
But also, I forgot to mention this at the very beginning, but just one last thing in this chapter I want to point out that I think is really funny is before they even go to the Glen, it says, Lucian, claiming that he had miserable emissary business to attend to, had left Tamlin and me to our own devices. And I'm just like, Lucian is wingmanning so hard.
I also like that his excuse is like, because of Tamlin. So it's like, Tamlin it's
his fault.
It's emissary business. So it's like, I can blame Tamlin for this terribleness.
That is funny.
But I like that.
Lucian is a Tamlin and Feyre stan.
He's
rooting for them. Mm-hmm. And that's chapter 23. Do you have anything else?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Then let's do chapter 24.
Okay.
So the summary I have is Feyre has been deglamored and can see everything. Mm-hmm. A full court and its true Fae nature to her immense surprise. When venturing to the garden, she happens upon a cruel, quote, prank from the Night Court. So, this chapter starts off in a really funny way.
Yep.
We have Alice in her room, but Feyre does not recognize that it's Alice.
No, and it's hilarious. Just like her reaction. She's like, but where's Alice? Like, who is this person? Like, and Alice is like, it's me.
She's like, are you out of your mind?
She's like, I'm Alice. She's like, Alice looks nothing like this. Like, what are you talking about? This isn't Alice. Mm-hmm. But then she realizes, like, that the glamour kind of has been lifted.
Yes.
At least for her eyesight. I don't know about her other senses, but...
So now she's starting to see fairies in their true nature. So, like, whereas high fae don't look that drastically different from humans, she's now seeing the fae that do look drastically different from humans. So, like, clearly they were trying to, like, help her and not have her freak out at the beginning of time here by glamoring Alice. Of course she would freak out. But yeah, Alice...
But also, like, the mansion's full.
Yes,
like,
that's the other thing.
It's like this whole mansion has been full of fairies this whole time, and she's just been, like, wandering the halls, like... thinking it's like her by herself. And that also, like, it brings about, like, when you remember, like, her with the puka, or when her was like, well, she thought it was her father and she was thinking she was so sneaky, like, just like going outside, and she had an audience, like, and Lucian even says that, like, yes, you had an audience,
which cracks me up.
I love it. I'd be so embarrassed to know that, like, I think I'm being stealthy, and yet everybody is out there watching me.
Because Tamlin confirms, like, they have been here all along.
Yeah.
And you're like, what do you mean they've been here all along?
I love it. I could totally picture how embarrassing she is.
Yes.
Or how mortified she is.
Tamlin followed up you had an audience. He goes, it was a valiant effort. And I'm dying.
I appreciate, like, their sense of humor in the beginning of this chapter.
Yes. It's so funny. And I'm like, honestly, if I was her, though, I would be mortified.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I'm just, like, thinking of every single thing I've done and, like, wandering the halls at night to, like, you know, map out the place. Like, there was people watching you the whole time. Everything you did, it was watched. Like, you were not sneaky or stealthy by any means.
So funny. I also wonder on Cal and Mai also, like, if any of them saw her, like, sneaking out to the stable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All of that stuff cracks me up.
But I know you had talked about this, like, in another episode, how you were, like, wondering kind of, like, what the whole ecosystem is.
Yes.
And this kind of, like, this probably like brings it full circle. It's like she's seeing all these different types of fairies. Like she said there was like winged ones that were outside in the gardens, and then like Alice, you know, with like tree bark kind of skin, and then the high fae
and others that were like insect-like, pruning the hedges. So it's
like all these different types of fairies. It's like there is like this whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's not like there's so many that aren't similar to what humans look like. So it's just interesting that she's kind of glimpsing this whole actual other world.
Right, because they've been talking about how high fae were meant to rule this whole time, and now we're starting to see like, oh, this is who.
Right, yeah, there are. Ruling. It's not just other high fae. Like there are other types of fairies and other types of creatures.
And then, you know, we get some really great Lucian banter.
Of course.
With breakfast. He jokes, he's like, if I offer you the moon on a string, will you give me a kiss too?
Oh, I love it so much. He's so funny.
He really is. But it also talks about, like, this explains why, like, the adder couldn't see her either. Because at one point, Tamlin threw a, glamour on her to hide her from the adder. So they've just been glamoring like left and right, yeah, basically.
And then there's a head on a statue.
Yes,
no big deal.
So Feyre takes her paint to the garden, like thinking she's gonna have a pleasant afternoon, when she stumbles upon that head, which would, for me, really ruin the day.
Yep. I think it would ruin pretty much everybody's day.
Yep.
But it's so crazy. It's like this head, you know, was decapitated off some fairy, poor fairy, and it was just placed on the statue right outside their house. It was branded by the Night Court.
Yes.
It had their sigil, so it's like a mountain with 3 stars is what they tell them. And it's just horrible.
Yeah, and Tamlin and Lucian kind of play it off as this is something that they would find funny. This is a prank to them. And part of me is just like, who would think this is a prank?
That's the least, like, prank. Like, when I think prank, I think saran wrapping the toilet. I think, like, pouring extra shampoo over somebody's head in the shower and they, like, think they can't rinse out their shampoo. Like, those are pranks. But no, like, this is, let's put a head on a statue. Like, fantastic. But yeah, I guess we're learning more about the Night Court. They kind of talk about how they're sadistic killers with no moral codes and they just do what they want, which is why they would find this to be like a humorous prank.
Right.
But then, like, I was like, well, what about that sexy male that we met, like, last week?
Right.
I was like, he was so nice. And, like, we don't know for sure that he was Night Court, but
darkness was emanating off of him, so
we have a strong inclination, I feel like. But I was like, he saved Feyre from, like, possible rapists, and he didn't, like, ask for anything in return. He, like, tried to escort her out of the woods. So I was like, are all Night Court that bad, or was he possibly not Night Court?
Yeah.
So
it's very confusing.
Yeah.
But then also, so Tamlin talks about how they're weirdly, like, connected to the Blight.
Mm-hmm.
And how it's like they aren't the Blight. And he says, like, hopefully the Blight will wreck them too. But he just kind of talks about them as almost as if they're helping, like, facilitate it, or they're enjoying the aftermath that the Blight leaves in its wake.
Right.
So they're definitely, like, according to Tamlin and Lucian, just making, like, bad situations worse.
I feel like they're the bad guys. Like, when I think of them, I'm like, oh, these must be the bad guys that are, you know, like, on Darth Vader's side kind of thing. And it's like they're just killing and destroying, and they feel more empowered because there's killing and destroying happening kind of thing. So I see them as Team Darth Vader right now.
Fair enough.
But, like, Feyre is really sweet at the end of this. Like, even after, like, she's been horrified by this head and, you know, they were just telling her what was going on. She tries to reassure Tamlin that, like, he's not his father's or his brother. Because, like, he, like, kind of brings up the slavery thing again. But she's just being so sweet. He says that he's better than they were. And I just like seeing her, like, so compassionate towards him.
I know. I love that, too. All right. Anything else for chapter 24?
I don't think so. I think that was pretty much it.
All right. Chapter 25. Here's the summary. Okay. Oh, this is a fun chapter.
Ooh, yay.
So this is the summer solstice arrives, and Feyre lets her hair down, enjoying the experience and her fairy lord.
Ooh. Oh, by the way, what color was your last chapter? I was curious because
last chapter.
It's kind of like both. It was like starts off on a high note, and then it kind of is like, ooh.
Last chapter was like, the summary was a yikes.
Okay. That's accurate.
Because really the head just like ruins everything.
It does. It really does.
This chapter is a blue in my feels.
It's a definite in my feels chapter. Like, for sure.
Very first thing I noticed in the early pages is Feyre finds out about summer solstice.
Right.
And she finds out she gets to go to summer solstice.
Right.
And she's like wondering about it.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, I quietly hoped that the solstice didn't require the same rites as Fire Night. And her jealousy made me laugh.
It does. It's definitely, well, so this is like totally the opposite, I feel like, from Cal and May, because first off, she's invited, so that's huge. Second off, there is no great rite like Cal and May.
Right.
So again, very good plus for Feyre.
Yeah.
And she gets to participate. She gets to like go have fun, which is, I'm so happy for her.
Like, the idea of Feyre having fun is like such a foreign concept to her. So it's really exciting.
Yeah. And I just like how she kind of like starts off this chapter talking about how she admits to herself that her heart is leading her down a path that will leave it shattered in pieces. And yet she can't stop herself. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited to see like where this leads. Like,
yes.
I'm like, this, I truly see them like growing in love and like falling in love. And it just makes me happy to like watch her like allow herself to do this, you know?
Exactly. And you and I have talked about this before. Tamlin is not my usual type.
Right.
But I am just so happy that she is like finding herself and like falling in love. Because I think she like admits later in this chapter that is what is and it's just, brings me so much joy that like someone is like opening themselves up to that.
I know. It's really sweet to watch.
Yeah. When she's talking though about this new festival and she says like, I'm surprised I'm even allowed to participate tonight.
Yeah.
Lucian's response is, unfortunately for you and your neck, tonight's just a party. And that just made me laugh because flashbacks to Cal and Mai when she had a little bite there. Anyway.
And it's like, I like when she's actually getting ready for it. She's starting to feel happy. Like she feels like a person again. And she admits that she's like, my body's filled out. Like I no longer feel like muscle and bone, but I have a woman's body. I was like, oh, Feyre, you're feeling yourself.
Yes, she is. Oh, I love that. And then like she's in this beautiful dress. They say that she looks positively fae. It's just so fun.
And so, again, like where she was from, there were no festivals or holidays or really anything like that. And so we kind of learned that they say that the summer solstice, it's the longest day of the year. It's a time when everyone can take their hair down and simply enjoy being fairy. Not high fae or fairy, just us and nothing else.
Right.
And so I like that. It's like a great equalizer for everybody. Like Tamlin and Lucian don't have to like act any differently. They can just have fun, be themselves, and we definitely see, Tamlin cut loose.
Oh, yeah, we will get to that in a moment.
Yes.
First, Feyre's the one to cut loose.
Oh, true, yeah.
By downing, like, several glasses of fairy wine, and I'm like, you go, girl. You feel yourself tonight. So I love how, like, Lucian is, like, basically, like, please don't drink that. And she's like, oh, no, I'm drinking it. I'm drinking more now because you told me not to. And he's like low key, like trying to watch her and like panicking over her. He's like, don't do this, don't do that. Cause he's just trying to make sure that she's safe, even though Feyre seems to be actually like embracing the heart of summer solstice, which
she says, today, let caution be damned.
Yes.
That's what she says. I was like, I love it.
That's so good.
She just wants to have fun and enjoy the night. I can appreciate that.
I agree. And she's being so silly. He's calling her like names kind of sillily. He's like, human fool, and she's like, I'm going to paint you, and he's like, cauldron, boil and fry me, and it's like,
I love it.
I imagine it seems like so much fun, like you're just having fun, and I feel like this is one of the first few times that we've just seen fun happen in this book.
Yeah.
And so she starts dancing like a crazy person.
Right.
Or drunken idiot, as Lucian put it.
Probably accurate, yeah.
When she spots a musician who happens to be the High Lord.
No big deal or anything. He sounds
no big deal.
The way she describes him in the scene, it just sounds so sexy. Like his shirt rolled up and then his corded muscles and his arms are like, oh, yes, Tamlin, play.
I mean, okay, here's the thing. I dated a musician in high school.
Okay.
And the best part of any musician is the forearms. It's just, it's the best part. Like, he used to wear, I was in high school, so, like, this is high school Alex, but even still, he used to wear these, like, he would wear these button-ups, which is a normal thing, but he would, like, roll up the sleeves, and it would be, like, those four, and I was, it was just my favorite part of him, and it's the best part of any musician, and so I got in my, like, high school feels for a moment when I'm hearing about, like, the sleeve rolled up, revealing the forearm. I'm like, I get it, girl. A musician's forearm. It's worth it.
I know. And she dances for him.
Oh,
I love it. I love it.
That's really good. And, well, she doesn't just dance for him. He says, dance, Feyre. He whispers it. I would die. I would, like, crawl up and die.
And he serenades her. He, like, plays, like, a solo fiddle for her. I was like, oh.
It's so sweet. I literally wrote, like, in all caps with, like, hearts and smiley faces, because it's just like the early stages of falling in love.
I know.
Love it. She says, I was filled with sunshine. It was like I'd never experienced summer before. Like I'd never known who was waiting to emerge from that forest of ice and snow. I didn't want it to end. I never wanted to leave this hilltop. And I just, ugh.
So sweet. And then he takes her, like, he, takes her away from everybody else, and they go to their own little spot, which is just, they're so sweet. And he dances with her over there, too.
Well, real quick, right before he takes her, he's like, he mentions that, like, she's drunk. And she's like, I'm not drunk. They're starting again. And she's trying to get back out there and dancing. And then it says, he leaned close, his breath caressing the shell of my ear as he whispered, I want to show you something better. And then it says, I stopped objecting. And I just put, like, LL next to that. Because it's like, oh, yeah, that's a really easy way to, like, she's like, oh, I want to dance. And he's like, but, and she's like, oh, okay, yeah, let's go do that instead. It made me laugh.
I like that.
But the part of the reason why it was so beautiful just dancing the two of them is because of the beautiful will-o-wisps that came out. It just sounds magical.
I know. And so I really like what they said. So she said, everything became a blur of color and sound, and he was the only object in it, tethering me to sanity, to my body, which glowed and burned in every place he touched. So it was like, oh.
Stop.
I love it. And then they made out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first off, he's like, I'm thinking I might kiss you. And she goes, then do it. And I'm like, yes, girl. That is how you respond to that.
But, like, who says, like, I'm thinking I might kiss you? Like, I feel like I would just
someone
go for
who's
the
being
kiss.
coy.
That's true. Like, that is their relationship. But I think about the ones I'm in, and it's like, no, I would just lean in for the kiss. Like, I don't need to tell you I'm kissing you or tell you to kiss me. I'm just going for it.
That's amazing. So, lots of feels.
I think the biggest feel is, you can go ahead. You can read it.
No, you can read it.
Oh, okay. This is, like, the best part of this.
Yes.
She said, my father once told me that I should let my sisters imagine a better life, a better world. And I told him that there was no such thing. I ran my thumb over his mouth, marveling, and shook my head. I never understood because I couldn't. I couldn't believe it was even possible. I swallowed, lowering my hand, until now. It was the happiest moment of my life. I was like, oh my gosh. Oh.
Sweet Feyre.
So sweet, Feyre. And
Sweet Feyre.
Yeah, that was all the feels, for sure.
All the feels.
I
know I've said this before, but I just love the early phases of falling in love, and I wish these things were, like, recorded and so that we could just like watch them over and over and you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
I guess you know what, that's the point of the TV show coming out.
Exactly. And that's I think I like texted you that today. I was like, I need this scene to be like, I need this to be a TV show so I can literally rewatch them falling in love. Like that's what I need to see like over and over and over again because it's just gonna make me so happy.
Love it. Okay, anything else for chapter 25?
No, that was it.
Oh, it was a lot. It was so sweet.
I know.
All right, so chapter 26 is next. My summary is short and sweet. It says, a dangerous visitor spoils more than just their peaceful lunch. And that was a cranky sticker, in case you were curious. So, we're after summer solstice. We're having lunch, and everybody's having a good time.
This is the best lunch. Like, this is probably one of my favorite lunch scenes that we encounter. Just because, well, Lucian always makes all of these lunches so enjoyable, but the sexual tension between like Farrah and Tamlin is so ridiculous. Like, I think she said he was like devouring her with his eyes, or like stripping her naked with his eyes, something ridiculous. And Lucian's like, hello, like I'm trying to eat here. I love it. I love it so much. It's like the most uncomfortable feeling though, like having people like be weirdly not PDA, but like
I know when you're watching it, you're just like, ugh,
cringing.
That's so gross. But when you're in it, you're like, I could care less.
Oh yeah, you're all in, like for sure. And I mean, they're totally all in, but it's just Lucian's just literally the best. I love it so much.
He really is. But he brings some upsetting news.
He does, yeah. The lunch quickly sours.
Yeah. He talks about how 24 of the younglings of the Winter Court are gone because of the blight.
Yeah.
And that's a real mood killer. And Tamlin is very clearly upset by it, as is Farrah, because she didn't realize that like the blight could kill people.
Right.
So that really sucks.
Yeah. And it's like worse too because I mean, you think about 24 like human kids being killed.
Right.
The whole country grieves, like it's on the news for weeks. Like it's devastating. But you think about fairies, like, and like especially like the High Fae, how Alice talked about how it's so hard to conceive and it takes like 75 years before they're like adults and like all this stuff or whatever. And I'm like, what? Like, how are 24 like imagine their grief. These like poor fairies that like can barely have kids as it is. Ugh, yeah, it just made me super sad to hear that.
It's very devastating.
And also I was like, why did the blight kill these 24 kids? Like they didn't do anything. Let's be real.
Yeah, it's sad, but we don't even get to dwell on that.
No,
because Tamlin freaks out.
Yeah,
randomly, and he's like, get Farrah to the window by the curtains, and like Lucian like stands in front of her and they like glamour her so she's invisible. Because someone arrives.
Yeah. But it's like, there was already so many people in the house. I'm like, how does, like, Tamlin know somebody's coming?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they have a whole house full of fairies. What did he sense that he was the High Lord of his, he's in his own court. Like, it's not even like he's anywhere else. Like, why is he freaking out? That's what I want to know. Well, we soon know. Like.
Right. So, the visitor, Farrah's met him before.
This is the guy that saved her on Callan May.
Right, which, when we met him, he wasn't all that bad.
No, this was a sexy individual that saved her from potential rapists. That's pretty good.
Right.
Even though she was terrified of him. Like, she did say that he was so scary.
Right.
But he was absolutely beautiful. Like,
but, like, his actions were not bad at the time.
No.
But here... we find out his name.
Yes.
Which is Rhysand.
Or Rhys.
They kind of like switch between both. And we find out he is High Lord of the Night Court.
And Aramantha's whore.
Yeah.
Which we're guessing is the she that has been referred to multiple times.
Yeah, I think it's probably the she.
Yeah. And it's just, but it's like crazy. It's like, everybody's like scared of the High Lords, or like people are intimidated by them, but like for the High Lords to be terrified of a woman, like,
right, like, who is she?
Yeah. And like the fact that a High Lord is her whore, I'm like, whoa, like this woman's got power.
True story.
Yeah.
But Rhysand comes in and he's very cool. He's very cold, really sarcastic. But I can't help but notice how Feyre continues to describe him. Because, like, at one point, she says, Rhysand laughed, a lover's laugh, low and soft and intimate. And I'm like, why are you describing him this way, Feyre?
Like, you should be terrified. Like, you never talked about Tamlin that way when you were initially terrified of him. So why are you talking about this, like, other High Lord that way? I don't think
she even, up to now, has talked about Tamlin this way.
No. Like, when she looks at him, she'll call him, like, you know,
like handsome and beautiful,
all those things. But yeah, like to describe like somebody's laugh that way is like, it's very interesting.
It is interesting, and clearly there's a history between the two of them,
right? Because it somehow seems like, you know, they were like in a war together, or like they fought together or trained together or something like that.
Yeah, so we're starting to get a little bit of another view of this stranger and who he might be, and how that impacts Tamlin.
Right.
And that's when, and one of the other things we notice about him is how observant he is.
Yes. Which I feel like, spotting a third plate at the lunch table when there's only 2 people, I feel like you should spot that. Like, I'm surprised Tamlin and Lucien didn't clear it off. Like, as quick as they were to, like, hide her, I was like, really? Like a third lunch plate?
I feel like there's so many people, though, like you said, at this. It could be anybody.
That's true. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody eating with them right there.
Right. So he sees the empty plate and asks where their guest is, and then realizes that he's been glamored.
Yes.
And he is not happy.
He loses his cool.
Yes.
He is not a happy man. He's like, how dare you glamour me? I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I wasn't scared of him before, but I would, like, the way that came off, I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I just see, like, the chairs, like, rattling, like, everybody shaking in their boots kind of thing. Like, oh.
And so she becomes deglamored and he sees her and he goes, I remember you. It seems like you ignored my warning to stay out of trouble. Which, like, he thinks they're trouble?
Right. I was like, you seem like the trouble, sir.
Right. It's like, what do you mean? She hasn't been staying out of trouble. She was just enjoying lunch. You're the one who's trouble. But also, B, it says, I skipped the, like, he said thing. It says, I remember you, he purred.
Not even like he said, he purred. Like, what?
Interesting.
Very interesting choice of words there. Well, I mean, he might have purred, but, like, why is he purring?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he clearly, that night on Callan Mai, he was intrigued by her. He was asking her questions.
He definitely was, yeah. So maybe,
and it sounds like he still is, and in a way, he's kind, I don't know, like, humoring her a little bit. He's like, I remember you.
Yeah.
I'm like, ah.
But it's weird because Lucien claims that Feyre is his betrothed.
Right.
And you're like, well, why? Why are you, like, pretending?
Right. I would imagine saying that she's with the High Lord would make her more protected than a rando.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was odd. And it's like, I feel like it gets intense real quick. Like, Rhys basically, like, he takes control of Farrah's, like, body and mind almost. Like, she can't move. And he can, like, read her thoughts and control her body. She said, like, with one push, everything about who she is would be gone. And I'm just like, what? First off, I don't even know what that feels like. Like, what is somebody, like, stroking your mind? I really don't even know what I would think that would feel like.
Yeah.
But to, like, know that you could be, like, everything about who you are, gone. Like, you would literally be starting fresh, knowing nothing about yourself, about anybody. It's, like, terrifying.
Yeah. It's that, like, that, if you want to talk about being afraid of something.
Yeah.
That's something worth being afraid of.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And something that Rhys also says in this, like, dialogue between him and the men of the Spring Court, he says, oh, she doesn't know, does she? And I'm like, what doesn't she know? What doesn't she know that you all are in on? We keep asking this over and over.
I know.
And it's just like, what are you keeping from her? Because it's not just Tamlin and Lucien keeping a secret from her. He also knows.
Right, and that's the thing. It's like, how does everybody know? Like, they're not even in the same courts.
Right.
And they both know. So it's like, what's going on? Like, what are we so oblivious to?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so once, you know, Rhys is doing that to Feyre, like, holding her mind, and Tamlin is freaking out. He literally gets on the ground and begs Rhys. Like, head to his boots, like, he is begging Rhys to not tell Aramantha about Feyre.
Right before he does that, though, Rhysand says something else. And he goes, if it's any consolation, and I think this is what drives him to start begging.
Yeah.
If it's any consolation, Rhysand confided to him, she would have been the one for you, and you might have gotten away with it. And that's when that's when Tamlin starts begging.
But it's like, gotten away with what?
Right.
And why can't she still be, like, the one for you?
Right.
What happened? Like, what? No, literally nothing's changed. Like, why can't she be the one for him anymore? Like, what? I don't know. But yeah, then he literally gets on the ground and begs. And Lucia does too.
Yeah.
And I'm just in awe. Like, how powerful is this Aramantha and Rhysand that Tamlin, a high lord of the Spring Court, is begging him to not even. Right. It's not even like to save Feyre, to like protect. It's literally to not tell Aramantha about her. And I'm like, what? How bad is this person that he's just petrified that she knows of her?
Right.
Like, it's crazy.
And also, like, when we talked about the High Lords, they kind of implied it's like that they rule as like equals. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, do they actually? Because it sounds like when we think about powers, like Tamlin has his shape-shifting powers we're seeing, and Rhysand has his mind-related powers, and they both probably have even more powers on top of that.
Right.
But it's like, are they all actually equal? Or it sounds like Tamlin is not only afraid of Amarantha, but Rhysand.
Right.
And of himself.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, is there in a weird way, like, some kind of like hierarchy also among the High Lords in terms of power? And
definitely possible.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Random thought.
But yeah, either way, Rhys doesn't like give a firm answer. He's like, maybe I will, maybe I won't, like, whatever. But basically he says like, I'll see you under the mountain. And I'm like, where's that? Is that like the party spot? Is that like, are we digging graves? Like, what's under the mountain? Like, why are we going there?
Right.
So
he also asks her name.
Yes.
And she lies, but she doesn't pick a random name. She picks like an old like friend of a friend, like another neighbor's name. Mm-hmm. She says that her name is Claire Better. Mm-hmm. And it's like Rhysand just kind of like takes it, and he's like, okay, and then he leaves.
But I like question. I'm like, first off, like, I understand she's like terrified, so I could see like her wanting to protect her family and like all that. But I was like, you lied. Like, I don't know if I would initially have the like thought of like lying if somebody's like, what's your name? To me, I'm already petrified. Right. So my mind isn't thinking, let me lie, let me protect the people I love. I'm just like, Sarah. My name is Sarah. Like, so the fact that she was able to like, especially like, because he was literally just in her mind. So it's like, I feel like he would know if you lied. Like, you should be terrified of this creature that can infiltrate your mind, and yet you still have the balls to basically lie to him about your name, which is impressive but also surprising.
Right. I totally agree. But also when Rhysand leaves, it says that he like vanished into nothing.
Yeah, as if he stepped through a rip in the world. I was like, is that a power? Is that like a night court thing?
Right.
Like what is that?
Right. It's interesting.
It is.
Anywho, anything else for chapter 26?
No, that was definitely a interesting chapter. Like a yikes.
Yes, that it was. Okay. Chapter 27 then.
Yes. Last chapter today.
Last chapter for this week. So, summary, this is another In My Feels chapter.
Okay.
So it says, in the aftermath of Rhysand, emotions are running high. Tamlin tells Feyre she needs to leave for her safety, but neither party leaves the bedroom as they come to terms with what lays ahead.
I like that. I like how you summarize that.
Thank you. I enjoy taking my time with this at moments. So chapter 27. First thing I notice is Tamlin's temper.
Oh yeah. It is he's a little extreme, but like first off, like, yes, it's extreme, but also it's probably an adequate response to what just happened. Like, he's a High Lord that literally just got on the ground and begged someone else. I'd be pretty pissed.
Yeah.
If I begged, like, anyone I know, like, literally got on the ground and begged them, I'd be pissed regardless of if they're, like, my equal or my lesser or whatever. And he's a High Lord. He shouldn't be begging to anyone. So I get he's pissed. But yeah, it is a very dramatic reaction too.
Yeah. It just... I always think it's interesting when people in their anger become destructive. Because, like, I don't know, me and my anger, I just, like, stew and cry, basically. Yeah. So when people are, like, rah, and, like, breaking things, I'm like, oh, okay.
I have, like, an internal rage. I don't, I don't take that out on anything. It's just, like, a internal, like, simmering, like, oh, rage. But
it's such a man response.
It really is.
But after he calms down, he comes and finds Feyre. And they have a really sweet moment because he tells her that he's sending her home, basically. And at one point she asks, did I do something wrong? And he goes, you did nothing wrong. You were perfect.
Oh, it's so sweet. Like, but also, like, super annoying. I'm like, wait, why does she... First off, I'm like, why does she have to go home?
Right.
Like, I get, like, Rhys was just there, like, possibly Aramantha could find out about her, but why does that matter? Like,
right.
Like, all these other creatures she's encountered, like, what... Why? Like, I still don't get it. It's like, why does she have to go home? And also, what about the treaty? What about this? Like, we've literally spent the first how many chapters of this book, like, trying to get out of the treaty, only to be told, like, even by the Suriel, that there was no way out of the treaty. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, now magically he can just take on this life debt. He can just send you on your way. Whatever. But I was like, the one time, like, she finally feels, like, at home and, like, loves being there. It's like, now all of a sudden you have to leave.
I know. It's so sad. But also, at one point, because he's basically telling her it's too dangerous.
Right.
And she goes, I can hold my own. And I'm like, Feyre.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, right, girl. Come on.
You cannot.
How many times have we been through this? Like, no, you cannot hold your own. Not against berries. Like.
Right. But it's just, this whole conversation is just heartbreaking because she's basically just like, I don't understand. Tell me. I want to stay with you. Treaty or no treaty. Blight or no blight. And it's like, she is, like, choosing him. Like, so hardcore choosing him.
Oh, I love it.
It's so different than, like, where she started.
It really is. And, like, Tamlin, too. I mean, you can genuinely see how much he cares about her because he's not worried about himself getting hurt or even really just, like, Feyre in herself getting hurt. But it's, like, they could use her, like, and hurt him and her. And it's like, he just doesn't... Oh, I'm just like, oh, you're so sweet. Like, you literally care about her so much that you're just trying to protect her in any way you know how. But I'm like, I'm still just blown away the fact that he doesn't feel like he can protect one human in his own court.
Yeah.
Like, that's just crazy to me.
Yeah. And then we kind of get a little bit of connection, I feel like, to the title of this book. Because she's like, I suppose it'll be easier if I'm gone. Who wants someone around who's so covered in thorns? Yeah. I don't know. I just noticed that and I'm like,
I know. I was like, this is definitely connecting to the cover.
Connecting to the cover. Is she the thorn and he the rose? I don't know.
Oh, good question.
I don't know. And he's kind of promising her that it's not forever. But she goes, and though I knew it was a lie, I put my arms around his neck and kissed him. I'm just like, you're all kidding yourselves.
I know.
And then sexy time.
Yes. Like,
good for them.
We just go into it. Like, all right.
Which, you know what? In a moment like that, you don't know when you're going to see each other again. You've had such a deep connection.
But it's like, I feel like if you're going to have sex with somebody, generally that changes everything. And it's like, oh, we just had sex. Like, I'm going to be able to stay with him. Like, we're together. And it's like, no, he just came to have sex with you so he could send you on your way. I was like...
I know. And that's totally how this chapter's like. It's like everything changed and yet nothing's changed. You're still leaving. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
I wonder if that was like a last-ditch effort from her to try to get to stay. I mean, it kind of feels like it was.
A little bit, yeah, because she's like, give me everything.
I know.
And he just like goes... I don't want to say primal, but primal.
Yeah.
Like, he just, goes full animalistic and just, like, whatnot. Yeah. And, like, you mentioned to me earlier about, like, the claws. Like...
Oh, my God. The claw deeply bothers me because here's the thing. It's too dangerous. That's too dangerous during sexy time. You can't control yourself well. And also, like, don't rip the nightgown, okay? Like, that's silk, that's lace. What if she wants to wear that again? Like, this.
I know.
I would be so, like, I understand the, like, animalistic portion of it, but, like, my husband rips some of my, like, nightgowns or lingeries. I'm just going to be mad. Like, I'm going to be like, I spent good money.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. Granted, she didn't pay for any of this, but I just.
True.
I don't trust the claw. I do not trust a claw in sexy time. That is a personal opinion. I would be like, sir, please just keep those in and let's go about our business, okay?
Yeah, we can do the biting, but, like, claws away.
Yes. I don't mind an animalistic nature. We talked about that on Cal and My.
Yes.
But keep the claws away.
I know.
Please, sir. But Feyre clearly thought that she was going to get to stay because when he's like, you have a long journey tomorrow, she's like, tomorrow? Like, yeah, you're leaving at dawn. And so nothing's changed.
I know. But yeah, he, like, oh, it's so sweet. So she's, like, falling asleep and she thinks that Tamlin says, I love you. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, you're literally sending her away, though.
Thorns and all.
Thorns and all. But it's like, why are you sending her away? You tell her that you love her. You just had sex. Like, how can you send somebody away? No, I'm like, Farrah, you have to stay. Like,
but
you
like
have
the
to push
danger
back.
must be that terrifying. Like that's how that shows how terrifying it is. He is madly in love with this woman. Mm-hmm. He is a high fae with immense power, even if it's been like lessened by the blight. And he feels like he has to send her away. Like, that's how dangerous the situation is.
It's just, like, devastating, though. I'm like, you guys just, like, found each other. You just fell in love. And then you're sending them away possibly forever. That's terrible.
It is terrible.
Blech.
Blech. So, we're ending on a feelsy, but bummer.
Bummer, for
chapter. Sure. But, you know what? We still got a third of the book left.
I know.
So, part of me thinks it's not over.
It can't be. It can't be. It can't be over.
All right. So, that wraps up this week's. Mm-hmm. Next week, we're going to do chapters 28 through 32. And I'm not going to give the name of that yet because it will spoil it. And I want you, as you read it, to not be spoiled. So, we'll chat more next week. Let us know what you think. Thank you so much for listening to A Court of Fairies and Fangirls, a Sarah J. Maas fan podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe. And let us know what you think. Jump in on the conversation. We look forward to chatting with you more next week. Bye-bye.